going to be shown. There we are, next to. I'll take my video out in a moment so that you don't necessarily need to see me while we're going through this. But hi, everybody, and I hope you've had a good time. A few people joining now, so that's good. So obviously you're finding me here. So let's actually take me out of the stream now so that you can see what I'm going to be sharing with you. And I'm pretty excited about this, I have to say. Quite a few people have said that they can't join live, so I'm going to go ahead as though people were here. I've got the comments box open, so if any of you, hi, it says hi Joanna, but I don't know who it is. If you haven't given StreamYard your permission, then it'll just say Facebook user. So if you'll just say who it is, and Happy New Year. And I don't know if that's the same person, but if you'll say who you are, then that means I can refer to you by name rather than, yeah, a few people now. Good. Okay, so I'm going to take me out of the picture. Let's go to this then, because for a moment it said that I'd lost sound as well. So if you could just give me a yes, we can still hear you, a comment, that would be really helpful, because when I took my picture out, it said that also you couldn't hear me. So can I just check that you can still hear me okay? Yes, we can. Thank you. That's really helpful. Good. So welcome to this. Thank you. Good. Yes. Welcome to World Introvert Day 2022. And it's one of the things I always try and do a little something on World Introvert Day, because last year we had a whole week dedicated to us, of course, through. Hi, Nicola. Nice to have you here. We had a whole week dedicated to introverts, which Matthew Pollard instigated, and we may well do that again in March. But for a while now, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that, January the 2nd has been designated as World Introvert Day. So I'm always committed to do a little something for us here. So let me just share with you what it is that I'm intending to do. That seems to have moved on, so that's good. As I say, I'm finding my way through using PowerPoint with StreamYard. So my intentions for this session, and I don't imagine we'll be together for very long. For me, it's this afternoon. I don't know what time it is for you. I know we usually have quite a few people joining us from the US, in which case it's morning for you. And I think we may even have some people from the Philippines and not quite Australia. Vaughan couldn't join us because he said it's midnight there. So intentions. I thought it'd be really good just to get us thinking about any residual frustrations that we're hanging on to from 2021, because there's something important here, and it's only going to be us, the ones who are damaged, if we continue to hang on to those frustrations. So just a little ritualistic something to help us let go of that, I thought would be really useful. I'm then going to talk about what it means to flourish in our new normal, because the reality is there is no going back. We are where we are. We are co-creating the new normal all the time. And I thought it would be really interesting and useful to start thinking about what that probably means, and what it means to flourish in our times now. And this is the bit that's exciting me the most, is I also intend for this to be a rallying call for the rebel in you, because, well, I'll say a little bit more about that when we get to it. But what I am talking about here is the positive rebel, not the negative, damaging rebel, but definitely the positive rebel, and that's the one that I'm rallying, that I'm calling in as we through this session, and I'll be doing that throughout the year. So watch out for that. And then finally, I think it's about setting the tone for our 2022. How do we want it to be? Regardless of what's going on around us, what is it that we intend to be the tone for our 2022? So that's how I'm shaping this session. So let's move straight in then to start thinking about this whole notion of World Introvert Day. I know some of you have joined me in the past when I've done things on World Introvert Day. And, you know, It's slightly unfortunate, possibly today, in that it's landed on Sunday here, and it also means that um, we've got a bank holiday again tomorrow. So, whilst this has been going on since 2011, and it was Felicitas Hayne, we think, who started it, it's always been that day where we go, and exhale. We can breathe again because typically the world has started to calm a little around us. It means that we're not necessarily surrounded by quite so many people, except, as I say, because it's landed on a Sunday, I think it's maybe not the perfect day it often is. Certainly, I know that my family is still, in fact, they're just off out now to have lunch. My husband off out to have lunch with stepsons and grandchildren, etc. And I may join them later, but certainly the timing is clashing right now, so I've declined because there are still celebrations going on. And it's the perfect day normally because it's the time when things start to settle, when we can start to exhale, when we can start to get back to feeling ourselves, who we are, and kind of getting back to recharging those batteries. And I have to say, I've had a pretty quiet 20 Christmas period, the end of 2021. So my batteries are pretty recharged anyway. But for those of you who need a bit of calming, I hope we can do that as we go through this, as well as, of course, supplying that rallying call. The the day was set up to give the excluded a voice, and I absolutely understand the intention of that. And in fact, I applaud the intention of that. But, and there is a big but for me now, the more I've been working with introverts, working with busting some of the myths and leveling the playing field and getting rid of that extroversion bias, I've realized that actually, A, one day is not enough. And secondly, and I think I find this really important actually, that we're only excluded as long as we comply or collude with the exclusion that's going on. Now, that may be a tough call for some people because for some people, they may be thinking, you don't know what it's like for me. And you're right, I don't. But I also know that the more we choose to show up and challenge the bias, the less likely we are to be excluded. So on this World Introvert Day, I've chosen to do something slightly different, which is to really get us thinking about actually, what is it I need to do differently? What is it I need to do in order that I'm not hiding because that's what the world expects me to do? I'm not in the corner. We know we've got our introverts corner, and that's a cozy place to be, but I'm not hanging out there for too long because that's what I think the world expects. What's that old thing from the film? Don't put baby in the corner. Yeah, well, don't put introverts in the corner because we have a lot to contribute. So I'm really keen that from this year, and it's part of my intention for 2022, is that actually I'm certainly not going to comply with that. I'm going to challenge it wherever I see it. If I see introverts being held back in some way, then I'm going to speak up for in that situation. And if I notice introverts holding themselves back, I'm going to be challenging them. So this is a slightly different version of me. This is not the cozy, okay, let's play small version. This is actually something different that we're moving into now. So let's think then about letting go of 2021. And I found this lovely quote from Jack Cornfield. And it starts like this: to let go does not mean to get rid of. That's a first important distinction, because what we tend to do is think that actually we're just going to, get rid of things out of our lives. Not necessarily. It doesn't mean to get rid of. It means to let be. Now, what a nice distinction that is. Rather than getting rid of, just letting be. And that doesn't necessarily mean agreeing with it. It doesn't necessarily mean succumbing to something, being under the thumb, being made to feel less than. But actually, when I'm letting go, I'm just acknowledging that actually that has passed, and I'm just going to let it be. I'm not going to continue to get anxious about it, or get angry, or I get upset about it. And then he goes on to say, when we let be with compassion, things come and go on their own. I love that. I can't tell you how much I love that. So whoever has done stuff to us, whoever has maybe excluded us in some way, if we start to recognize that that may not have been done out of malice, it may have been done for some other reason. And if we can show some kind of compassion for that, rather than, as I say, this, any angst or angriness about it, then actually what we can do is really start to let go of things. So for me, there's some stuff that I want to let go of from 2021. And one of the things I've realized that, one of the reasons I need to let go is because, as I've mentioned, it's only me that suffers in the long term if I continue to hang on to things. So there are a couple of times where I put my faith in people and it didn't necessarily work out the way I wanted it to. And at the time, it caused me quite a few problems. But because I've been able to let that be with compassion, I know in my heart of hearts that the person who did what they did not do it out of spite, out of malice, or out of anything that was meant to hurt me. What it caused me to do is go and look at the communications I had with that particular person and think about, where did I not make myself clear? Where did I not check for understanding? Because actually, rather than getting wound up about what happened, what I can look to do is think about, how do I make it better in the future? Now, sometimes I might be letting go of a relationship. I've certainly done that in the past. And again, I can let go of those relationships with compassion. I don't need to bear a grudge against people or against any of those things. But in this case, because I want the relationship to continue, what I need to do is really think about, how do I need to improve that going forward? Where do I need to, in some way, improve my own communication? I also recognize that I need to let go of some limiting beliefs that I still have. And it doesn't matter how many times I do this work around limiting beliefs, then guess what? Either they resurface or new ones are formed. Many of you know of my inner critic Gladys, and she's pretty nifty at coming up with new limiting beliefs. And what I need to do is catch those as I'm thinking them, catch them as they are shaping my behavior, catch them as they are leading me down a certain path that I don't want to go down anymore. So I have a couple of limiting beliefs that I'm working at letting go of right now. And as I let go of the limiting belief, I'm also looking at how I can turn it into a liberating belief. How can I switch it? How can I turn it? Because, the subconscious mind doesn't like completely letting go. It doesn't like losing things. It's one of the reasons so many of us have trouble losing weight, is because the subconscious mind doesn't want us necessarily to lose things unless we replace it with something. So in the past, when I've lost weight, isn't every belief a limiting one? Not always, Jenny, actually, I think. Some beliefs are liberating ones, and we'll maybe talk about that. And certainly I've got a program coming up about that. But I do think that there are beliefs that empower, that enable me to do things rather than limit what I believe is possible. So in that way, Jenny, I'd disagree with you. That's not to say that we're not constrained by them in some way. So I understand your comment from that perspective. And the other thing that I'm getting really clear about, and is sort of around letting go for me, is about understanding what I can control, what what I can influence, and what is just out there as a concern. And I'm going to be focusing my energy on the things that I can control firstly, and then on the things I can influence. What I'm letting go of is focusing on things that I have no control of at all and cannot influence in any way. So they're the things that I'm very definitely letting go of. Yes, liberating. Yeah, absolutely, Jenny. So for me, it's very much about, if I've been acting around on a belief that has been holding me back. So I'll share one of mine with you. And I've gone a long way to shifting this one, but there's still some way to go. Is that actually, it's the old classic old one about who am I to? Who's going to listen to me? I'm a nobody. Why should anyone listen to me? Actually, the liberating version of that, because that limiting belief actually then stops me showing up, it stops me taking action, it stops me actually serving the community that I want to serve. A liberating belief is actually one that says i can I can serve those who are ready to listen, those who are ready to be served by me. And of course there are going to be those that aren't ready to be served, and that's absolutely fine. But you know what? I'm going to make sure that the liberating belief is that I'm ready to serve those who are ready to be served by me. And it's one of the reasons that I have that screensaver on my phone that actually says I positively impact the confidence and well-being of introverts ready to flourish. That's my screensaver on my phone for that very reason. That's my constant kind of liberating belief. That's my affirmation going forward. So I think I'm just going to give you a couple of moments to think about, and you may have already been doing this anyway. What limiting beliefs would it be helpful for you to let go of? What is it you need to let go of with compassion so that it stops eating you up, so that it stops holding you back? And what are the things that concern you, that you can't have any control or influence over, that actually you would be better off letting go of? So I'm just going to give you a couple of moments thinking about that. I'll turn my mic off or go quiet for a moment while I'm letting you do that. There's the doorbell, so that's my husband going out for lunch with his sons and his grandchildren. Perfect. Okay, so let's just move on. It may be you want to come back and do a bit of this. I often do this around the end of the year. I'm not a great one for New Year's resolutions. There's something about that word resolution that doesn't resonate with me, whereas intentions are actually something that I can really buy into. And I have some intentions about what I'm going to let go of, and also how I'm going to hold myself accountable to letting go of those, um, as part of my intentions too. So, flourishing in 2022, this is my favorite quote around flourishing from Dr. Lynn Sutz from the positive psychology world. And, she talks about it being the product and pursuit of, it being the product of the pursuit and engagement of an authentic life that brings inner joy and happiness through meeting goals, being connected with life's passions, relishing accomplishments through the peaks and valleys of life. And that's the bit I really want to focus on, I think, going forward, because what we know is that actually we're probably going to be experiencing quite a few more peaks and certainly valleys in life in this new norm that we're part co-creating at the moment. And what we're talking about there, just trying to move my slide on, is actually that, as Dawna Jones talks about, we are living in this VUCA environment right now. And she talked about this. She's been talking about this for almost a decade now. And it started off with the American military, and it's kind of, the business world, and therefore our social world has started to recognize this much more recently. And what we're talking about with that VUCA environment is that it's more volatile than it has probably ever been. Just look at what's going on around the world to recognize that volatility is very real and very present. Times are more uncertain than they've ever been. You've heard me talk over the last 20 months or so about, the hokey cokey or the hokey pokey, if we're talking American language here, of lockdown, in out of lockdown. And I'm still not sure that we're not facing something similar in terms of further restrictions here in the UK. It's more complex than ever before. We are connected in more ways than ever. And just look at the number of people, although I'm streaming here live into Facebook groups and a Facebook page. So many people are now starting to pull away from so many of the social media channels, because the complexity has just gotten too much. The ways in which we're connected is too much. And of course, ambiguity. You know, we don't know, we don't have the answers to everything, and yet we have to move on, we have to push on, even though we don't know the answers to everything, even though we don't know how things are going to pan out. So one of the things I think we need to think about in those peaks and the valleys of our lives, when actually what we're doing is operating in the pursuit and engagement of an authentic life, is to recognize that that's what's going to be going on. Times are going to be tough, times are going to be hard. It's not always going to be easy for us, and likewise it's not easy for those around us. So behavior often becomes more polarized in some ways. The bias itself may become stronger as certain people choose to work from home and other people choose to go into the office. So then we're setting ourselves up for the proximity bias to be a real thing, where those who are in the office are remembered and given opportunities, and those of us working from home not. So we need to understand and recognize this in this new norm that we are co-creating. There are still so many myths and misconceptions about introversion. And I love just how many people are now working in the introvert space. I was tagged in a few posts in LinkedIn today, all about celebrating World Introvert Day. And I posted a post myself about this need for us actually to become slightly more rebellious, to not continue hiding. We know we need to look after our mental health and our batteries by having enough recharge time. But actually, playing small and hiding is not the answer. And I think if we want to bust, or if we want these myths to be busted, probably that's a better way of saying it, then we have a responsibility to take action. We can't rely on other people to do this for us. And that for me is what flourishing is about, because I don't know that I can live a happy, fulfilled life if I'm just stepping back and allowing other people to kind of speak for me, or if I'm pointing fingers, or if I'm in some ways living by those limiting beliefs. You know, and I use this passage often, The Deepest Fear by Marianne Williamson, but there are two particular parts that I want to call on today, and I want to draw your attention to. The first is this passage, this part of the passage that says your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. I feel that is aimed at me, absolutely at me. So if I play small, if I shrink, if I abide by that limiting belief that says, who am I to do this? Then actually I'm not serving the world. And the second part, as we let our our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we're liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. We know that up to 50% of any population identifies as an introvert. If we start showing up powerfully as introverts, it gives other introverts permission to do exactly the same thing, to come out from hiding, to stop apologizing, to move past that not feeling enough that many of us have felt for so long. So, this is the part that actually I really want to help willing introverts access over this next 12-month period. And I'm referring to it as my sassy introvert society. And I know that I need to define sassy because it still has some negative connotations, a bit like introversion itself. But for me, sassy is feisty, it's energetic, it's a little bit quirky. Yeah, thank you. I'm just reading what Jenny said. I used to think that shrinking was an absolute must, and so I just don't allow myself to be there for long now. Yeah, absolutely. For me, there's a huge difference between shrinking and between retreating to recharge and coming back out again. And that's what I'm really calling people to do, is not to shrink and play small and hide so that we protect others, but to actually stand up and be feisty and actually challenge and confront, but in our own powerful, quiet way, not in a loud, shouty, shout everyone down kind of way, but actually just in that powerful way. So, this is what I started to work with at the latter end of last year with some of my corporate clients. And it comes courtesy of Rebels at Work, and you can see the icon at the bottom of the page there. Unfortunately, the my logo is a little bit over the bottom. So, oh, Sass is your nickname. Perfect, Jenny. Well, then you're in my Sassy Introvert Society for sure. But this is the work I started sharing with my corporate clients because I saw too many of them being um, obliging, being controlled in some way, playing small themselves, wondering who are they to because they're not a manager or a leader, because they don't know that they have a voice or that they'll be taken seriously. So I started introducing this whole notion of being rebellious and making the distinction between bad rebels and good rebels. And Jenny, I know for sure that you're a good rebel, not a bad rebel. So whereas bad rebels break the rules, and I'm not saying breaking rules is always a bad thing. I've broken a few and I intend to keep breaking them, but I break them with the intention of changing them. So good rebels change rules, they don't just break them. Bad rebels obsess about problems. And again, that's a bit like, what is it I need to let go of? Because obsessing, catastrophizing things is not going to help move them forward. Pursuing opportunities is what makes a difference. When I spot a problem, what's the opportunity that that creates? Rather than just digging in and keep pointing to the problem, how can I turn it around? How can I make it different? What does that give us the opportunity to do? I'm struggling a bit with this next one because I feel like I'm lecturing you right now. I'm on a soapbox. I know I'm on a soapbox, but I'm on a soapbox for a reason. But bad rebels lecture, they talk over, they don't allow other opinions. Good rebels listen. They seek out the opinions of others. They ask great questions so that they can understand what other people are thinking, what other people need. Bad rebels alienate, good rebels attract. And certainly, I'm intending to be in full attraction mode. And I know I won't attract everyone, and I'm absolutely fine with that. But those that resonate with this message, I think, will be absolutely drawn to this. Bad rebels point fingers, good rebels pinpoint causes. And that's not only the cause of a problem as opposed to who caused it, but kind of what's the underlying cause. And one of the reasons that's important is, do you know how often in corporates in corporates, what we do is that we solve the presenting problem, not the underlying issue. So good rebels actually dig in and find what the underlying causes are and pinpoint those causes, and also pinpoint the causes that they're rebelling for and with or against. And bad rebels are me focused. What you can't read necessarily there is that good rebels are mission focused. And I'm on a mission. I am mission focused. And if you haven't got that from this so far, then I'm doing something wrong, because I believe passionately about this. And I hope you can hear that. So, what does that mean then in terms of setting the tone for 2022? I'm going to offer up a few questions here, and I would love for you to spend, thank you, whoever's saying this is gold, thank you. Setting the tone for 2022, I'm going to ask a few questions. I've created my own answers, and I'm absolutely going to share some of my answers with you. And if you feel able to share answers too, that would fill my heart with joy. But I don't expect you to. It's entirely down to you. You can put them in the chat here. You could message them privately to me in Facebook. You could email them to me, or you can keep them to yourselves. One thing I will say though is, there's been tons of research that says actually when we think about, so that's Lisa saying that, thank you. When we think about our intentions, and in this case, the tone that we're setting, and we write about it and we share it, we are automatically more committed to it. So even if you can't share it with me or us here, find someone you can share it with, because then the accountability is set up in a different way. So here's my questions. What could you do less of? I'm going to give you a few moments to start thinking about that. And when I've given you a few moments, I'll share some of the things that I'm going to do less of. Thank you. Yeah, obsessing over what others think of me. That is such an important one, because that really can hold us back massively. The reality is that actually people don't, sorry, this is a hard one. People don't think about us as much as we think they do. And I'm a big fan of Byron Katie. And one of the things she talks about is there's my business, there's your business, and there's God's business. God, in her case, meaning also kind of what's much bigger than any of us. And the only place we have any business being is in our own business. So thank you for sharing that. I encourage you to be in your business and not worry what other people are thinking, because we can't control that. We can influence it maybe, but we can't control it. And if you think you can influence it, then take action to influence it. But obsessing, not helpful. One of the things I'm going to do less of is say yes unconditionally. I'm going to start using, so what I can do, here we are, look, what I can do, no, coming on to that. So what might doing the less of things create space for? That's an easy one for me, because I'm about creating space for more creativity and serving this community. So what might that create space for you? If I'm going to say less unconditional, if I'm going to use the unconditional yes, less often, that creates space for me to do all sorts of things. I've got so many program ideas in my mind, and I often don't have the time to do it because I've said yes to things that frankly are less important, that aren't part of my mission, things that I'm still habitually doing because they're what I've done for years. Brilliant. Venturing outside your comfort zone. So here's my take on the comfort zone. Now you've raised it. I don't necessarily find it helpful to go way outside my comfort zone because I what I've found over time is that if I work at the outer edge of my comfort zone consistently, that serves to expand my comfort zone. So I really encourage you to think about what's at, what's deep in the heart of your comfort zone, the thing that you're drawn back to where you feel really safe. What's at the outer edge that's starting to feel a little bit risky? What's just outside? And what's way out there that you might aim for at some stage in the future, but not just yet? What I encourage you to do is have a foot either side of the edge of your comfort zone, just inside and just outside. So, when you're talking about venturing outside of your comfort zone, you don't need to go a million miles out there, because what I've found happens is that then people get really scared and retreat back in, never to venture out again, bit by bit. It's what Dave Brailsford, who managed the UK cycling team for the 2012 Olympics and before that actually, talked about marginal gains. And I'm a big fan of marginal gain technology, little by little. And that is how we can actually really, when we look back, go, wow, look how far I've come. Fantastic. Yes, Nicola, I'm with you. Creating headspace for new ideas to develop and time to pursue them. Absolutely. Completely with you on that. And Jenny as well, listen to intuition more. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Therefore, what could you do more of? And that may be linked to that, what that creates space for. What I'm going to do more of is challenge the bias when I see it, challenge people who I know have potential and are stuck in old ways of being, in limiting beliefs. So I'm going to be doing a lot more of that in 2022. I'm also going to get my sass on more. I'm going to be more sassy, more feisty, more energetic, more playful. I can get way too serious from time to time. And it's really helpful for me actually to get playful with things. Life's short. I'm in my 60th decade. I can't know, my sixth decade, I suppose. I'm in my 60s, coming up to my mid 60s. You know, I don't have any plans to go anywhere right now or anytime soon, but I need to bear in mind that, time is limited for all of us and we never know what's around the corner. So, lots of things we might do more of. I'm certainly going to be braver, more courageous with my sassiness too. And yeah, you as well, Jenny, more playful. Yeah. And I'm deliberately setting about doing things that are more playful too. Absolutely deliberately. So, what do you want your word for the year to be? You've probably gathered what mine is. And it's either it's sassy, or it might be positively rebellious if I'm going to have two words. But my word for the year is sassy. And with that comes a whole load of stuff. That playfulness we've talked about, the brave, the feisty, the energetic, kind of uncompromising is in there somewhere too. So if you had to choose a word for the year, what would it be? If we were looking back just at the end of 2022, seeing how that word played out in the way you've lived your life, the way you've shown up in 2022, where would your evidence for that be? Courageous. Nice. Love it. Yeah. Good. Focus. That's nice, Nicola. Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. So, oh, playful, Jenny. Love it. Yeah. More playful. And you know, I can't say playful without grinning from ear to ear like a Cheshire cat. I've started doing uh, a morning kind of dance class thing, um, and a virtual one. And I just smile and feel playful the minute I start doing it. Brilliant. Brilliant. Okay. So this brings me to the end of what I wanted to share with you on this World Introvert Day 2022. Yeah, makes us all smile, I think, doesn't it? And here's my invitation to you. If you would like to up your sass, put your sass on more often, then find a way to let me know. Because one of the things I've started um, creating, and I think it's going to be weekly initially, is what I'm referring to as a dash of sass. And it's going to come in a little video from me on a Monday morning every week. I may go more often than that, but at the moment I'm thinking a Monday morning every week, a little dash of sass, so that actually what you can do is be more playful, feistier, more courageous, and actually really show up with all the strengths and the talents and the abilities that you have as an introvert. Because we're not meant to be in the corner either. Just like baby, we have our corner to retreat to, but we don't belong there. We don't live there. We just go there to recharge and come back out. So thank you for joining me. I've really appreciated those that you've been with me, that have commented. And of course, because it's in Introvert's Corner and on Flourishing Introvert's page and in YouTube, you can come back and watch this again if you want to. And if you are watching this at some stage on hashtag replay, then hashtag replay, leave your comments, let me know. And I look forward to helping you put your sass on. Bye all.